Hey everybody, waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm your host Craig Lindell, and these are the 2017 NBA playoffs. The Cleveland Cavaliers take game one. Your number 2 seed Cleveland Cavaliers take game one against the 7 seed Indiana Pacers, 109-108, in a game that was far, far closer than any of us ever would have hoped it would possibly be. So, how do we break it down? How are we going to break these things down? First of all, I'm going to try and do some post-game breakdown podcasts as the playoffs go along. Sometimes I'll have guests, sometimes I won't. Game one, it seems pretty easy to break down by myself, so I will do that. This game came down to the last second. Obviously, Paul George was the candidate that Indiana wanted to take the final shot, down one, as time was expiring on the fourth quarter. The Cavaliers did something that they should have done in the regular season if they wanted to tip their hand, but they didn't, and they doubled. They forced the ball out of Paul George's hands. Somebody else shot the shot. I should probably know who took the shot. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. They missed it, and that's really the key. You know, Jeff Teague is kind of dangerous. Paul George is actually dangerous. And you can't worry about anybody else. CJ Miles missed the shot. And that's the bottom line. The Cleveland Cavaliers out-talented the Pacers today. That's what they did. And they are going to continue to do that. And I'm sure that is going to cause a lot of concern for a lot of Cavaliers fans. And maybe it should. There's only one way to find out. It's keep playing the playoffs and see how things develop. The Cavaliers didn't look particularly good as they were being outscored in the fourth quarter, 24-17. They had a nice big lead for much of the game. Not a big lead, but a lead. They had a lead and felt like a solid lead for much of the game. And then here comes that fourth quarter. The Cavaliers can't score. They give up 24 points, not a huge amount of points, but they couldn't score. And if the Cavaliers aren't outscoring, that's kind of part of their defense, a really, really big part of their defense. So as you kind of look into the box score, LeBron had 32, Kyrie had 23, J.R. Smith only had 6 points. That was a little bit surprising. Kevin Love had 17, Tristan Thompson had 8. Channing Frye did pretty well for the Cavaliers. He had 11 points on 4 or 5 shooting. The interesting fact, Iman Shumpert did not play a minute, didn't play coach's decision. Derrick Williams didn't play, Darren Williams did. And Darren Williams actually was pretty solid. He has not looked great since the Cavaliers brought him in. At least not as far as my opinion goes, but he actually gave them some really valuable minutes, plays with the ball in his hand, brings the ball up, which, you know, that is a value. You know, we've seen Delly do it over the past couple years. It's a value to take the ball out of LeBron's hands and take that pressure of bringing the ball up and letting the offense get set up. It takes that pressure off of LeBron or Kyrie for a minute. And so Darren Williams does that for them, and it's good. Lance Stevenson. Let's talk about Lance. He was generally pretty bad. He had 16 points on 8 of 13 shooting, but anybody who watched this game saw, I think on the broadcast they were calling it irrational confidence. Jeff Van Gundy was calling it irrational confidence. And I'm not one to use Jeff Van Gundy when it suits me, just because you know, I also throw his commentary away when it doesn't suit me. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you know, now that he agrees with me, that Jeff Van Gundy, he's right. But in this case, Lance Stevenson, the way he plays, it looks like irrational confidence. He's not scared of any shot, and there were some real bricks that left the hand of Lance Stevenson today. CJ Miles is the one who bricked the final shot. And he was open. You know, anytime you double team a guy like Paul George, it's going to leave somebody open. That's what the Cavaliers know when they double team Kyrie or LeBron, especially when they double team LeBron. Whether it's J.R. Smith, Channing Frye, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, Kyle Korver, you're going to find somebody who's probably not scared to shoot from the outside. And CJ Miles didn't look comfortable at all. Did not look comfortable at all taking that final shot. And maybe one of those guys that I listed on the Cavaliers wouldn't sound comfortable doing that either. But I think they would. I really, that's the difference. That's the difference, because one of those people might be Kyrie Irving, one of them might be Kevin Love, and even if one of them's J.R. Smith, you feel better than you do if it's CJ Miles, and that's the difference. So, Game 1 is in the books. The Cavaliers win only by a single point. But this just feels like what the playoffs are. The playoffs, it's never easy. The Cavaliers, even in the past couple of years when they've swept series, it hasn't felt comfortable. I think they swept Detroit last year, but it wasn't easy. Did it ever feel easy when they were sweeping an opponent? I know that's silly, but series can be easy, but individual games never are in the playoffs. Everybody's playing their best game. Everyone's game planning very specifically for each other, and it brings all the spreads much, much closer together. And that's not to say that the Cavaliers won't go off from three or even just, take care of business with their free throws. I'll get into that in a minute. But just because the Cavaliers struggled to beat the Pacers by 1 point in the opening game of the first round of the 2017 playoffs doesn't mean that they won't beat them by an average of 24 over the next 3 games. It's possible. Totally possible. Especially with the talent discrepancy between the Pacers and the Cavaliers. And the game shouldn't have been this close. Let's talk, first of all, the Cavaliers were 11 for 28 from 3. That's not too bad. That's 39.3%. Free throws. The Cavaliers were 14 of 27. 14 to 27. 51.9%. The Pacers shot 17 to 20 for 85%. That, if the Cavaliers lose, that's your difference. Tristan Thompson goes 0 for 3. That's fine. You're kind of used to that. But Richard Jefferson goes 2 for 4. J.R. Smith goes 1 for 2. Kyrie goes 0 for 1. LeBron was 6 for 9. You got to hit those free throws. And as a team, they didn't do a good job hitting their free throws today. And it almost cost them the game. I mean, even if they get an extra 5, this is obvious. Math. 5-6 points. That's all you need. As a team, they've got to do better from the free throw line. They need Tristan Thompson to get 1 out of however many he shoots per game. Yeah, and it's just got to be better. So that's pretty much it. The game looks like it should be easy for the Cavaliers, despite the fact that they only won this one by 1 point. They just didn't execute down the stretch. They didn't score like they can in the fourth quarter. They defended in spurts today. They got in the passing lane. They were really busy out on the perimeter, and they locked down. Early on in the game, they were getting beat up by interior passes in the lane. They locked it down. They closed in. But at the same time, they closed out really well on shooters. Paul George is just going to get his. And that's going to be kind of the way it is. But he scored 29. And the Cavaliers don't really have a natural defender for him. It's LeBron James. When J.R. Smith is on him, it feels like a bit of a mismatch. J.R. Smith can check him, but Paul George can get his shot off over J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith is a bit annoying when he doesn't have the ball in his hand, when he's off the ball and he's trying to get the ball. J.R. Smith does a good job covering him there. But when he's got the ball in his hands, there are very few people who can guard him. And consistently, Tristan Thompson's got the best size to guard Paul George, but he doesn't have the foot quickness. You don't feel great about him being out there. You never want to see Kevin Love on Paul George, that's for sure. And that's where Iman Shumpert comes in, the fact that he didn't play at all.
Shumpert's not really good. He can't check Paul George, and we know it. Because if he could check Paul George, he would be playing a lot more. And it's not just about Shumpert either. I think Kyle Korver is actually a slightly better defender. He plays a very, very veteran defense. He seems to know what he's doing. He seems to know where other players are going to be. And it's the kind of thing that the Cavaliers should value against a team like the Pacers. And I think you could end up seeing some Shumpert play as the playoffs go along, just maybe not in this series. Maybe just not in this series.
And I thought Channing Frye played pretty active today too, although he's still kind of a liability. I know he's not a protect the rim type center, but he can't protect the rim even against kind of the smaller to medium-sized guards and forwards. So, that's obviously something to keep an eye on. The Cavaliers really don't have a lot of depth on that front line, and Channing Frye is going to be really important. And at some point, if Channing Frye is really important, that's a bad sign. I don't know that they can get anything out of the rest of the guys on the front court. Maybe Derek Williams at some point. I don't know what adjustments they're going to look to make, if any. But I guess if I had to pick one, it would probably be Derek Williams. Giving him a few minutes, giving him a shot. I don't know. We'll see. Darren Williams only played 10 minutes. He played the least out of all the subs. So anyway, I know it wasn't fun. I know it wasn't. It was certainly exciting. I know it wasn't really fun or exactly the result that Cavaliers fans wanted in terms of a win. You wanted a win, but you wanted a bigger win, and you certainly wanted them to hold a lead coming out of the third quarter and not letting it come down to the Pacers missing a shot at the buzzer that would have given them the victory. But a win is a win. Nothing is easy in the playoffs. We know this. And survive and advance. Survive and advance. So that's game one. We'll be back. Game two is Monday night, still in Cleveland. And we will see what adjustments Ty Lue makes, or if he makes any at all. Maybe they'll just try and shoot better from the free throw line. Who knows? So that's it. Thanks for listening. Go Cavs. I don't know how to sign off on this one, but thanks for listening. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.